Prop 65 kind of takes everything that is kind of known and bad about my profession, being a lawyer, and packages it into a one mean little ball and allows for plaintiffs' firms to sue companies on their own volition as a citizen themselves or individuals of the firm as citizens, pursue these actions against companies and then settle for multi-million-dollar amounts, because every single infraction is $2,500 per day after a 60-day warning period. And so if you have tons of products, each one of those is a product, each one of those is an infraction, multiply that times how many days, you raise the amount of penalty to huge levels, and the attorneys get their fees paid. So there's a massive, massive industry around this, just law firms suing companies. So, you know, it's not the same thing as, well, FDA is not really making this a priority. Plaintiffs' firms are incentivized and do make this a priority for themselves, and it will bite you. So there's my doom and gloom.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add on to that too, the law doesn't specify a particular analytical method that is used to determine compliance. So the private plaintiffs, as Dave was talking about, can really use any method that they wish to determine if they think your product is compliant or not, or that it has detectable THC.
And I guarantee you, to add on that, I guarantee you that the testing labs that firms will use will probably be at least 90% more accurate than most run-of-the-mill testing labs. They have an incentive to be right and an incentive to detect the smallest amounts possible. Unfortunately, a lot of testing labs in this space are incentivized to kind of give the customer what they want, which is, you know, a clean bill of health, so to speak. So they might not have they don't have the same incentive level to provide accuracy the way a plaintiff's lab would, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sure does. So question coming in, will California be using the AOAC method? I think you just answered that. It's kind of, goes to any lab that the plaintiff chooses to test at. And would that be under any method, not necessarily AOAC? Would that be correct?
Correct. There's no specification for a particular method to be used.
Got it. Another question that came in. We're having a lot of fun today. Thank you. We have a lot of questions, and thank you so much for submitting them. If you do want to continue to ask questions, please do this through the Q&A tab at the top or bottom of your screen. I had one come in from a friend here in Colorado. Thanks a lot for this one. This is actually something I didn't know. Is it correct to assume that Prop 65 will apply for animal products as well, or is this only humans?
It's anything put into commerce.
There might be a difference in how it's treated depending on exposure. So you're generally not going to eat dog food, but you would be exposed to it. So there might be a little bit of a tweak there. But, you know, there's Prop 65 warnings for diesel fuel, for car garages, for
Disneyland.
Yeah, Disneyland. That's Disneyland itself. So it's pretty much. I think I could sum up my and almost every attorney's position on this quite neatly in saying, if your product if you make a product, let me rephrase that. If you make a product, you should put a Prop 65 warning label on it, because California is the 5th biggest economy in the world. Your products are going to end up there whether you want them to or not, and you don't want to tempt the plaintiff's bar.
Yep, that's a really good point. And I'm glad you brought up the exposure delivery mechanism, or how we can get any exposure, because you're right, if you were making potentially a salve for a dog that potentially had a little THC in it, you're putting that on your dog, then you're exposing yourself. And I think that's a great opportunity to say, yes, this regulation does apply to ingestible and topical products. Is that correct, everyone?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Well, the questions are coming in. This is
it would also apply to things like a vape oil that you would be inhaling So any route of exposure.
Perfect. Perfect. That's a good comment. Thank you so much. So there are some different Prop 65 warning formats. Can you walk us through a couple of these examples, maybe the short form and maybe the online disclosure? Do you want to kick that off, Jane?
Sure. So I think I would start with there's some kind of basic requirements for the typical consumer warning format. Now you have to include at least one of the chemicals that is prompting the warning. And you have to include, if you have one carcinogen, you would include that chemical. If you have two carcinogens, you only have to name one of those. You don't have to list necessarily every single chemical. If you have a carcinogen and a reproductive toxin, you would have to list both of those because they're different toxic endpoints. So you have to list the chemical. You have to put a specific URL on in association with the warning. It's a specific California Prop 65 warnings website. And then there's a little symbol, a little triangle with an exclamation point in it that goes with the warning. And that's kind of the basic safe harbor warning format. You can provide the warning in different ways. You can obviously put it right on your labeling, on your product label or labeling that is sold with the product. You can work with a retailer to have things like shelf tags or literature available that the consumer can access before they buy the product. If you're selling over the website, you can provide an electronic warning to the customer before they purchase the product. So there's different ways, obviously, that you can provide the warning too. There is a short form warning. So if you have a very small product with limited space available, there's a shortened warning. You can provide the symbol in the triangle, the URL, and then either cancer or reproductive toxin, I think is the wording. So that's the kind of it in a nutshell. There's obviously lots of nuances for different product types and things like that, but that's the kind of the basics for warnings.
Yeah, I like that. And so thank you for that. That's a full day seminar in 4 minutes from our AHPA expert. No, thank you for starting off with that high level. I know there's a lot of confusion. I'm seeing a lot of Q&A come in on that. Thank you. Please do keep it coming.